Hi guys, and welcome back to the Taipan development set. It's late and it's a Friday night. I should be out with the wife in the pub, but I'm here talking to you, so I've got a glass of wine in front of me, so if you hear me slurping, I do apologise in advance. We're into the texturing stage now, and to be honest, this is going to be the hardest part of this set. It's just quite time consuming, and we spent all this time making this lovely UV map there, and to be honest, when we come to texture it now, it's not going to be the greatest deal of help to us, and I'll show you why now. So basically what we've got to do, like when we did the UVs, we broke this object into the smallest pieces we can, and we sort of systematically worked through it, creating these UVs, and we're going to do exactly the same for the materials. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick one object. In this case, I'm going to pick the anchor. We're going to start with that, and I'm going to build a few materials for that. We're going to have wood and probably a dirty sort of rusty metal for these braces and nuts. And then, as we come to do other parts of the sampan, we can reuse those materials. Or, if we think it's going to be hard to select what we're looking at, we can create new materials of the same sort of type. And now when we bring this into Unity, obviously we want as fewer materials as possible, but if you remember one of the early parts of the Taipan I basically showed you how to sort of amalgamate all multiple materials into one. So we're going to do the same process with this boat, our boat here today. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter even if I've got a million materials on here, we're still ultimately going to only have one. So, but you'll see what I mean about making duplicate materials if things start to look a bit dodgy. So, the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, we're going to do the anchor in this part, and we're only going to do the anchor. And I'm not going to film me texturing the whole boat. If not, we will be here until the cows come home. So I'm just going to, if my mouse starts working. It's one of them mouse where you actually put like AA batteries in, and the light's flashing on the top saying the batteries are flat, so it may conk out at any time, and at the moment the buttons are a bit, sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. So anyway, there's the anchor selected, so I'm going to do Shift and H, just basically to hide everything else. Now, if we hop over here to the, we've got the Sampan UVs selected, and this is those polys. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it in one of the early parts when we were doing the UVs, but when you make a texture, that basically fits into this 0 to 1 space. So what I'm going to do, just to show you, give you a bit of an idea of what's going on here, I'm going to just select this brace, and we're just going to work on this brace. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select just these polys that make up this metal sort of strengthening brace, I would call it. I don't know if that is a brace or if it's a, that was one of those things we added to the model which wasn't really on the imagery, the reference images. Okay, so now if you hop over to the UV map, we zoom right in, it's basically this little few polys here and these few polys here. And so if you imagine an image sitting in here, now I've given you some images, well I've given you all the images you'll need, but at the moment I've got an image called sort of rusty metal, which is, I think it's about a 640 by 480, and it came from cgtextures.com. All my textures are going to come from there for this tutorial, just because they're free to use for any situation, so you haven't got to worry about any licenses. So if you can imagine, even if it was 1024 image sitting in here, this little piece here, if this is 1024 all the way along, halfway would be about 512, so 3 of these squares are going to be about 256, so a square and a half is going to be about 125, say, so 1 square is going to be about, say, 60, So this is going to be about 10 pixels across. So you can imagine it's going to be a fairly blocky thing. So what we'll do, now I've got these selected, I'm gonna hit M, and I'm just going to give it a name called Metal Brace. And you can see I've been in here and I've done one of these already just to give it a test. So anyway, I've got my Metal Brace there. And so what I'm going to come over to the shader tree. I'm going to open the render node, and I'll talk a bit more about the shader tree when we come to the end of it. And above the material there, I'm just going to have that selected, and that will put it above. Then I'm going to select add item, image map, and load image. And in your CG textures directory within your section 6, you should see these few textures I've given you. Now these all came from, like I say, CG textures, and I just basically created a normal map for each using Crazy Bump just in case we need a normal map. So anyway, I'm going to select the rusty paint, and I'm going to hit open. Now you can see straight away from here, as long as you've got your rusty paint image selected in the shader tree, you'll see it within the UV space. So you can see for yourself when you zoom in. We're looking at these polys here. You can see how big the pixels are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 6 pixels across that whole area. So that is just no good. But when we come to bake out our final massive Atlas texture for the whole boat, we're going to bake one out at probably 4096, if not higher. We might even go up to 8000K for the final texture. But don't let that worry you, because when we bring it into Unity, we can then specify ultimately how big that texture is. But I'm thinking more along the lines of, if we have to take the texture into Photoshop and do a bit of post on it, we need the resolution there. We can't gain resolution later. We can only lose it. And it's easy to scale down a texture, but obviously you cannot scale up a texture because you're going to lose it's just going to get pixelated and you're going to lose sort of definition. So we've got this, and now we need to basically sort this out. Now, if you come over to the properties of that image, you'll see, if you go to the texture locator, there's like a horizontal and vertical wrap, which you can basically up these. Now, to be honest, to get this anywhere near where we want it, we're going to have to just boost and boost and boost. Now, so you can see now we are getting there. Now if these textures were tileable, which this one obviously is not, it would be a better situation even further, but that's not really going to be a problem for us because we're going to be painting onto these. So all I want to see at this stage is just some nice background colouring, nothing more. I'm not really too concerned about these nuts, these sort of fake nuts on there, and I don't really want to start moving these around, obviously because it's in an atlas, but you can move them if you want, and I'll show you how to move them in a moment. And sometimes it's easier to move them and scale the text, the UV polys up here. But we'll try and do this just using the wraps. You can also sort of scroll these across. So if you're getting these fake blips in sort of erroneous positions where you obviously don't want them, you can just move the offset a bit as well, and you'll see it scrolling across the model. And but we've wrapped, to be honest, we've wrapped nearly 60 times, so wherever we put these we're going to see some nuts, to be honest. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to try and get the nuts off the top, because that's the main part we're going to see. Okay, so it's still a bit pixelated, it's still a bit, I'm just going to see if we can, if these will. Okay, it's getting pretty good there now. You can see that is still obviously a bit pixelated, but it's nothing to write home about. And I'm going to try and get rid of the nuts on the top there. I'm not too worried about these side bits really, just because A, we're not going to see them, and even you can see here this is going in the one direction, that's going in the other direction, which is it's not ideal. and that just means basically these parts over here, this block, or these polys, these sort of strip here. If you want to sort that out, you can basically just select those and then tear off with the move tool and just move them out of the way and then move them back in. So but then you're gonna lose. Well, actually, we will do that. So we've got polygons selected, just so I can get in here. Let's just select these. So that's that section around there. I'm going to hit the W key. I'm going to tear off and just basically tear off, and then I'm going to rotate it round. And then I'm going to just move it right against its edge for now, just because I'm pretty sure there's no materials, poly, sorry, against that edge. So that's fixed that small problem we had there. Okay, so I'm saying that brace is done. Just remember this is here. We'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to select these nuts because they're also going to be the rusty metal. So I'm going to hit the M. I've got them selected, the polys. I'm going to hit the M key. I'm going to leave metal brace highlighted. I'm just going to hit OK, and that'll just put that material on there. But that'll be based on your wrapping levels you made for that material. Now, if it transpires that the wrapping level you need for these small pieces is different for this, then basically what you'll have to do, you'll have to come back into polygons and make sure they're all selected, hit M key and call it something different, call it metal brace 2, and then you can open that rusty paint or import the rusty paint into metal brace 2. Then you can come back to these wrap levels and you can make obviously different versions. So, and that's one of the problems with using the same material over and over again, is now I can't change the offset, because if I start tweaking this offset, that's going to start tweaking the offset for that brace. But as we are here now, it doesn't really matter because these are just some rusty metal bolts, so it's not really an issue. Now this piece here, this is the same. This is going to be the rusty metal as well, so I'm just going to select all these polys. Okay, I'm going to hit the M key. If you select polys too many or the wrong polys, it doesn't matter. Like if I'd have selected this one as well as that, yes, it would have put metal onto this poly here, but then when I come to do the wood, as long as I select it again, when I select the wood, it will overwrite what was there before. So I'm happy with the way the metal's coming on this. So this thing here is also, I'm going to hit the M key again, metal brace is also metal. Now, with the wrap level so high, you're obviously going to see a lot of sort of tiling there. So what I'm going to do, we might not be able to fix that with this, but I'm just going to select that again. I'm going to hit M and I'm going to call this one metal brace 2, and then that will give us another metal brace here. So I'm going to select that one. This is the image. I'm just going to hit duplicate and I'm just going to drag that into I'm going to just close this down just so we know we're working on this one here. Now if we go over to the texture locator for this new one, I can tweak these and that obviously won't affect. So this is the problem child, this vertical wrap. So I'm just going to bring that down a bit. Even if it goes blocky, I'm not really that worried about it. Just as long as it's not, you know, pixel central, I'm not too concerned. Just because we're going to be painting onto most of these textures. So I'm going to just bring it down. See, now it's starting to get a bit. See, that's a better position, even though you obviously you can see these tiled bits. It's not. it's not obviously tiled, if that makes sense. So we're going to just okay. Now this sort of piece here is looping around, but that's at one extreme and that's in the middle, so you don't really notice it too badly as being tiled. Okay, so that's I'm happy with that. Now what you can do now in the list mode, you can go over to the materials. This is within Polygons here. Open up the materials and you'll see your materials in there. So what you can do, you can basically select polygons by material. So basically within this piece which is on screen, these polygons here, there's three materials. There's the two I've put on and there's everything else which hasn't got one yet. And so now we're going to do the wood. We basically know whatever's left, so I'm going to just click on the plus next to default and that will select that, and I'm going to hit the M key and I'm just going to call this, actually I'm going to give this a name like anchor wood, because I'm thinking the woods are going to be so weird and wonderful with the different scaling settings between the model. One wood is not going to fit every eventuality with this, by not even a long shot, so we might have to have many woods here. Okay, so I'm going to use this rough wood here. Now yet again it's not really feeling the love too much there, is it? So we're going to go over to properties and we're going to just play around. Same again, none of these stages are that difficult which we're doing today. It's just they just end up being a bit long-winded, if you know what I mean. It's just, now this is a good example of something which is obviously going to go a bit wrong. Okay, as I'm increasing this, we can see the grain over here. If I select one of these polys just so we can see where we're looking, the object's facing this way, but the grain of the wood is going across, so really this should be facing sort of more of a horizontal orientation. Now this object is going to be seen, just to make sure I've got track ball off. This object is going to be seen pretty much from this sort of point of view, so it wouldn't matter too much. You're not really going to see the grain, but you know, it's just not right, to be honest. So we're going to do this for the sake of doing it now, just so I can, because normally I probably wouldn't bother, because like I've said before, the model's going to be, that's probably going to be zoomed out to that, so you know you can't see the grain. But what we'll do, I'll show you how we can change these UVs without actually sort of change them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new UV map here. I'm going to give it a name, working. Okay, now I'm going to go over to the original Sampan UVs. I'm going to right click and hit copy. I'm going to select my working and I'm going to hit paste. So now working is basically going to be the same as paste. Now our anchor wood, the image is selected. I'm going to go over to properties, and down here in the texture locator under projection type it's got UV map, and in the UV map it's got Sampan UVs, which is the original one. So I'm going to pull down, drop down, and I'm just going to change it over to working. So now it's using my new set of UVs. So now what we can do, as long as you make sure you've got working selected here, I can go down here, we'll select anchor wood, all these ones. I'm going to hit W key, I'm going to tear off, I'm going to click in the viewport here, I'm just going to move them off. Don't forget these bits here is the brace along the middle, so we're not worried about that. And now gonna, with the polygon selected, I'm gonna hit the E key just to rotate. Now I'm gonna rotate this round so it's in the right orientation for the sort of wood grain. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just, in my anchor wood, the horizontal wrap, vertical wrap, I'm just going to set back to 1. I'm just going to move this. It doesn't matter where this is now. This could be anywhere. And it doesn't matter if it goes off the actual screen here or... So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to scale up. Look, it's getting big. It's getting bigger than the map, but doesn't matter. And now you can see the grain going the right way, and it's starting to look, you know, far better than it was. So I'm just going to scale up again. Now it's starting to get as it should be. Now what we need to remember that at the end we need to sort this out. So all these, I've made it obviously a problem here with UV maps, but as long as I've got my original one with it in the right place, it doesn't really matter what I do with this. So all I'm doing now, I'm just trying to get this texture looking right for my needs. So now I'm gonna, so I'm saying that's fine for that piece of wood there. So now I'm gonna select these pieces here. I'll do these pieces next. We'll worry about their end in a moment. In fact, I'm not even going to do the end piece. I'm going to move that into the middle. And here we go again. We're going to scale it up. Now if you find that when you're scaling this piece up, it's still not right and it should be orientated differently, you can just rotate it. It just doesn't matter. These UV maps, what I said before when we made this one, you can't have red polys overlapping. You can forget all that now. Now you're into the realms of doing the texture and you can just... So I'm quite liking that, even though I just rotate that around sort of 30 degrees on a whim. It's that actually looks quite good to me. It looks better than the grain coming straight. It'd look a bit boring if this one with the grain was going the same as this. So I'm happy with that. So that's good. So now we can forget about that. These end two bits, we'll do these next. Now these aren't together, but it doesn't matter. Just scale up. Even though this is going way off here into the distance, it doesn't matter. Don't let that worry you at all, or don't lose any sleep over that. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And I'm going to just do all these in one go. We're not really going to see anything here, so I'm just going to hit the scale key and just zoom them up. Let's just have a look. Let's go a bit more. Okay. So I'm saying that's done. So that's our anchor finished. So ultimately now for the anchor, some of the UVs are being used on this working one, some are on this one, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that some of these images here are linked to the working one there, you'll see, and that's linked to that one. But then when we come to finally make one atlas texture, we're going to have to make a third set of UVs now called like final Sampan UVs, which are going to be a copy of just this one, because that one's not changed at all, and we're just going to bake everything down into one image. So I don't know if this has been a bit confusing, this part. It's just a tricky concept to try and get your head around, you can just basically, 1 minute I'm telling you let's lay it all out nicely, and the next minute I'm saying make a pig's arse of it, and it doesn't really matter. But it's ultimately we do need one laid out well, so that was the time we spent making this set here, because ultimately we are going to need that. But to actually do the texturing and getting the images right, you can just work away to your heart's content. So there's the anchor dump. I'm not going to texture, like I said, I'm not going to texture all these on camera because it's just the same as I've done there, and it is tricky. And to be honest, this is going to take me probably 10 hours to probably texture this whole model, and you don't want to sit, and that's with me just doing it. If I'm recording the videos, well, it might even take 20 hours, and you don't want to sit through 20 hours of me doing this. So these are the techniques I'm using. I'll do one more on camera, or I might do a bit more and just come back and finally do the hull on camera, because that's the most complex object. So I hope you've enjoyed this UV stage, this texturing stage so far. Bear with it, it is quite tricky, and I'll see you back for the next part. So bye for now.